And welcome to the Audio Imaginarium. Come on in, weary traveler, hang your cloak on a peg and grab a stool. Come gather around the fire. There are stories to be told, and you are among friends. Once again, I am broadcasting from the little studio beneath the stairs tonight up in Thornhill, north of Toronto. Ian is behind the big audio board at Zoomerplex in Liberty Village. Ryan is producing the live stream from his lair in deepest, darkest East York. Albert is on assignment again tonight. Captain Randy Cramer is standing by to discuss the secret space program, among other things. And he is here for the full 2 hours. And I will invite you to call in with questions and comments in the second hour. Don't call before then. Otherwise, you'll be on hold for a while. So save your questions for Captain Cramer until the second hour. Besides, you're going to want to hear what he has to say for at least the first hour before you comment. And I can pretty much guarantee what he has to say will blow your socks off. Incidentally, Captain Cramer, I'm not sure if we have reached you back in studio. We have been trying to reach you on your cell phone. I know you're participating in the live stream, so we can see you in the live stream, your video, but we also need you to be on the phone. So if you can hear this, we need you to pick up your cell phone and mute your computer. Mute your computer. I know that Ian back in studio is trying to raise you on your cell phone. All right. While Ian is busy trying to reach Captain Cramer, I'm not sure if you had a chance to listen to me on Coast to Coast Friday night, Saturday night. Last night, actually into this morning, Sunday morning, author Steve Ubaney was here, or was with me, for the full 3 hours. And Steve is writing a series of books called the Who Murdered series. Who Murdered Elvis was the first one. That came out back in August. And last night on Coast, we discussed the Who Murdered FDR book. Who Murdered FDR. And I tell you, that caused quite a stir. So we're going to get Steve Ubaney on the Conspiracy Show as soon as we can. And so for you history buffs, stay tuned for that. Steve Ubaney, Who Murdered FDR. This is likely going to change everything you think you know about FDR and how he died. Okay. Now, I'm just getting a message here from Captain Cramer. He says he can't call Canada, Ian, if you're listening. And but we should be able to call you, and we do have your cell number. So we will we'll try to call you again. So strap yourselves in. My guest tonight, as I say, is a whistleblower from the secret space program who has experience with time travel, teleportation, technology solutions, and has a contact with aliens, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals. The captain is also privy to psionic research, which provides a miracle cure that can apparently cure everything, even regenerate limbs. Captain Randy Cramer is an officer who has been given authority to address the public on behalf of the command staff of the United States Marine Corps Special Section. which was created by President Eisenhower back in 1953 as a covert military intelligence branch with specific authority over ETs, multidimensionals, non-humans, and off-world beings. Consortiums and collectives, either sanctioned or unsanctioned, with actionable reach of any and all global territory. He is the product of Soldier Augmentation Project Moonshadow, a training program for children which he began at age 4 and later spent a 20-year off-duty spent 20 years off-duty, over 17 which was serving with the Mars Defense Force. He finished his service aboard the EDF SS Nautilus under the command of Captain Roger P. Kirkland as a pilot under Project Radiant Guardian. And I should also point out that Captain Cramer will also be at Stargate to the Cosmos Expo 2018. That's happening at the Ramada Inn in Albuquerque, Albuquerque, New Mexico in Midtown, October 25th to the 28th. That is fast approaching. Again, Stargate to the Cosmos Expo 2018 at the Ramada Inn, Albuquerque in Midtown, October 25th to the 28th. Now, back in studio, Ian, I'm sure you're getting these messages. Captain Cramer cannot hear me, and we're having difficulty calling in to him on his cell phone. So I'm assuming we still haven't made contact. Why don't we open up the phone lines and do some open lines until we get to Captain Cramer? And Ian, if you could message Captain Cramer and let him know that we're trying to raise him and so forth. So why don't I give you the telephone numbers in lieu of our guest? 416-360-0740, 416-360-0740 in the Greater Toronto Area, and toll free from just about anywhere, 1-866-740-4740, 1-866-740-4740. Once again, the number in Toronto, 416-360-0740, 416-360-0740, and toll free from just about anywhere, 1-866-740-4740, 866-740-4740. Ask me anything, of course, keeping in mind, what is this program all about? We don't swap veal recipes. We don't talk about the weather. And what else don't we talk about? Well, let's focus on what we do talk about. This is called The Conspiracy Show after all. So The Conspiracy Show, we talk conspiracies, we talk the paranormal, we can talk UFOs, we can talk cryptids, cryptozoology, we can talk geopolitics and the like. All right. Now, I'm just going to take a moment here because I think I can send Captain Cramer a message on the iChat. He can't hear us, so I'm just going to type him a message. We are working on it. All right. So we are trying to reach you on your cell phone. You're not picking up. That's a problem. No guest on the other end. However, we will soldier on until we can contact Captain Cramer. 416-360-0740 and toll free from out of town, 1-866-740-4740. Now, we can talk about geopolitics. You know, this whole Jamal, this journalist, Khashoggi, that went disappearing or has vanished. We now know that he was murdered at the consulate, the Saudi Arabian consulate in Istanbul back in October the 2nd, I believe. If you'd like to weigh in on what you think is happening there. This has obviously far-reaching implications because it threatens obviously to destabilize the relationship between the United States and a very important ally in the Middle East. The United States doesn't have a lot of allies in the Middle East, and the Saudi Arabians, for all their warts, are a vitally important ally. A counterbalance to Iran, of course. Saudi Arabia now sort of strangely has come on board and has sort of cozied up to Israel because Saudi Arabia is obviously fearful of the Iranian influence in the Middle East. And so that can make for unlikely bedfellows, if you will. Egypt, Israel, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, now sort of cozying up to each other because of their fear of Iran. But if, for example, President Trump decides to break off relations with Saudi Arabia or cancel this $100 billion plus military defense contract, again, this could have far-reaching implications. Will it throw Saudi Arabia into the arms of Russia or China? If they can't get their defense, their military hardware from the United States, they will likely go elsewhere. So this is very problematic on the one hand. So while it's easy to say, well, Saudi Arabia, the leadership there, the monarchy, they are butchers, and there's no question, as far as I'm concerned, they had knowledge. Something like that doesn't happen. You don't murder someone in a consulate without having, I would say, prior approval, tacit approval from Prince Salman. Now, is the United States in any position to tell the Saudis that we're not going to play ball with you unless you oust Prince Salman? Not sure that can happen. Obviously, though, this cannot be let go. This cannot be ignored without serious repercussions. So if you'd like to weigh in on that, we certainly can. Now, having said that, I have to say that this poor soul that met his end in a most violent and brutal way, he's been described as a journalist. I don't think I would go that far. I don't think there is such a thing as journalism in Saudi Arabia. Certainly there is no such thing as a free and independent journalism in Saudi Arabia. He was more like a propaganda minister, truth be told. Now, having said that, he was a resident of the United States, had begun writing some columns for the Washington Post, and now all of a sudden he starts to write about freedom of the press and so forth. That certainly wasn't his role while he was in Saudi Arabia. Now, having said that, that doesn't excuse the horrible barbarism that was perpetrated against him. But I think it's important also to understand who he was. So there's that. We can throw that on the pile if you'd like. But we can also talk other conspiracies. We can talk UFOs, ETs, just about anything you like. Let's call this segment Ask Me Anything. So again, it's 416-360-0740, 416-360-0740, and out of town, just about anywhere, actually, 1-866-866-740-4740. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett and Ian back in studio. Why don't you take us into a break, and we'll try again to try and reach Captain Kramer. Back with more in a moment. Stay with us.
Question everything. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett on Zoomer Radio.
The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett is brought to you by Crime and Trauma Scene Cleaners.
Hi, this is Amanda, Alicia, and Alana, and we're the Alt Sisters. We've put together a brand new show, Sisters in Song. It's a celebration of all the fantastic sister groups who've amazed and inspired us. The Andrew Sisters, the McGuire Sisters, the Pointer Sisters, Hart, and more. It's like fire. A night of some of the world's all-time sister group classics. So join us for Sisters in Song, Saturday, October 27th, 7:30 p.m. The Jane Mallet Theater, St. Lawrence Center for the Arts. Tickets at ticketmaster.ca.
Hi, I'm Steve Herron here for your Natural Health Minute. Naturopathic Dr. Jonathan Beatty is my guest, and our focus is eye health. Dr. Beatty, cataracts and macular degeneration are common vision problems as we age. What remedies do you suggest?
Oh, that's why. There's two main things you want. combat oxidation in the eye, and increase the blood flow.
Okay.
That's with
The problem
exercise,
is I can't make time right now to call Albert because I got to scramble and
But of
figure
course,
out
we
where-
also know screen time on electronic devices has its own set of problems, doesn't it?
has to do a
Well,
better job
tech
of
devices
confirming
emit
those
blue
things.
light, and that also plays a
Do you have
role.
anybody? Why don't you get some calls lined up? Anyone
My
calling?
recommendation, add lutein and astaxanthin to your diet. Now, these antioxidants help by reducing the risk of developing cataracts and help maintain eyesight in age-related
No, I don't.
macular degeneration.
Hey, thanks for this, Dr.
All right.
Beatty.
gotta
Thank
go.
you,
Thanks.
Steve.
Look for complete vision support formulas OcuForce and OcuBlue from Prairie Naturals. Both contain antioxidants for the maintenance of eye health. OcuForce and OcuBlue, available in natural health stores everywhere.
The moment you moved in, you could feel it. A chilling presence, an unwanted entity, and whispers in the dark.
Get out.
Experiencing unexplained disturbances? Time to call Paranormal Contractors, a division of crime and trauma scene cleaners. They'll professionally assess, identify the source of the disturbance, and if necessary, remove any unwanted visitors. Paranormal Contractors, for things that go bump in the night. For more details, visit crimescenecleaners.ca.
Hi, I'm Norm Edwards, inviting you to visit the incredible Magic Windows showroom. See for yourself why Magic Windows can give you a 40-year warranty with no fine print. How Magic Windows let in more light, reduce energy bills, and why Magic Windows are the best design windows in the industry. Examine Magic Windows in person, then you'll really believe in magic. 75 Roundtree Dairy Road, just south of 7, just west of Weston. I have Magic Windows in my home, and I recommend you have Magic Windows in yours.
The Honda model clear-out ends this month, and our 2018s are going fast. So to tell you the offer before they're gone, here's a carnival barker.
You there, step right up and lease a 2018 Civic Alex sedan from just $57 weekly at 1.99%, zero down, which includes a $750 Civic bonus.
Just a little too quick. It's lease the 2018 Civic LX sedan from just $57 weekly at 1.99% and zero down, which includes the $750 Civic bonus.
I am shocked and amazed.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Includes freight and fees for 60 bucks, taxes extra, OAC, see HondaOntario.com.
Corporations, governments, and sometimes entire civilizations. What goes up must come down, and it lands on The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio.
All right, welcome back. We are soldiering on. We were scheduled to have Captain Steve Kramer, but we can't reach him for some reason. He's not picking up on his cell phone, and he can't call Canada. So if you are listening, Captain Kramer, we are trying to reach you. I see him in the, he was at least on the live chat a moment ago. However, we're going to go to open lines until we can reach him. And let's see, we have a gentleman on the line from, it's John in Burlington. John, welcome to The Conspiracy Show. How are you?
Good, thanks. How you doing, Richard? Love listening to you on Coast there.
I appreciate that. What's on your mind, John?
I was just curious as what you thought about the NPC meme. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. Like, well, I'm not really connected to social media. Like, I've learned about this actually through YouTube, you know, watching YouTube videos. And it had come up a bunch of times over the last couple of weeks, and I hadn't really noticed it. You know, just like I thought it was kind of cute. And it's kind of, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's been banned by Twitter because it's being used by right-leaning trolls to bait and inflame the leftists, depicting them as NPC characters from video games who are, you know, programmed only for a certain script.
Right.
You know, right. They have no other response other than their programmed responses.
Yes, we call that the hive mind. I was never clear on what the NPC reference was because I'm not a computer. I'm not a gamer. My children, who I now affectionately refer to as the IT department, because if I have a problem, they come and fix things. But I'm not familiar with NPC in terms of the gaming context. But I have been following it a little bit on social media. But I'm not surprised. Should we be surprised? Obviously, Twitter, Facebook. Despite their denials, there is a huge political bias at play here.
I would have to agree, and in just the mainstream media altogether. Like for years, I used to get a Saturday section for the New York Times because I so valued the varied opinions and points of view that they used to give. And it no longer gives that.
No. So, I'm not surprised. However, I think I'm not sure exactly when this is going to happen, but I think the writing is now on the wall, to use the old biblical reference, that this situation with Facebook and Google, and particularly Google, playing around with algorithms, filtering out conservative search results, refusing to work with the U.S. Pentagon on certain projects, but then going over to China and helping that tyrannical government spy on its own citizens. This cannot stand. This will not stand. I'll tell you what I did earlier today. I was having trouble with Firefox on my computer. For whatever reason, it just keeps crashing. And so Ryan, God bless him, said, well, have you tried BraveNet yet? So just because I had to, I had no other choice. I downloaded BraveNet, and I'm now using that. So and BraveNet, I guess, is kind of a, maybe the first sort of pushback against Google, and there will be others.
Alternative to Google.
Yes, there will be others. There will be, Google is a it's not exactly the same thing as BraveNet. One is a search engine and one is a browser, but there will be more and more of this happening, and people will vote with their feet. At least I pray they do. There will be
their minds, Richard.
Well, yes, but what I'm saying is, in a free marketplace, this is what we refer to as voting with your feet, or voting with your wallet, or however. Sure, voting with your mind. There will be an alternative to Twitter, and what would push that over the edge, of course, is love him or hate him, but President Trump has tremendous power with his following. If he were to suddenly decide I'm off Twitter and I'm going somewhere else, and a number of people, with that, a number of influencers like that. If they decide that's it, I'm done with Twitter. That's right. Then there will be an alternative, and that's the solution. The free market ultimately. But this virtual monopoly can't be allowed
to see the free speech thing come up again. In that, here's an attempt at humor, and it just shows the left has no sense of humor.
That's true. And I like to Dennis Prager, who I follow. I love Prager University, and I think he makes an important distinction that has to be made, and that is it's not the liberals. The liberals are not the enemy. The liberals are our friends. Classical liberalism is a hallmark of Western civilization. It's the extreme left. It's let me call them the alt-left, since they love to use the alt-right. It's the alt-left. It's the progressives. They are the problem, not the liberals. So it's important to make that distinction. But I'm not surprised that the Twitter would be banning this meme, or they ban James Woods because, he's got a pretty acerbic tongue and a very sharp wit. And
it's alarming, though. It's Orwellian in that, your people's free speech being suppressed because it's not the popular speech. That's a problem, I think, really, in this country to a great degree, is who defines hate, when it comes to hate speech.
Right. There's no legal standard.
Massive examples of what I would term hate speech directed at those on what they like to call the alt-right, and it's basically comes down to, if you don't agree with the radical left now, you are a de facto Nazi.
Well, it's the speech which is least popular that needs to be defended. That's what fails to resonate with a lot of people. We have to defend people that we disagree with. People that we find somewhat odious, perhaps, as long as they're not obviously promoting physical harm against an identifiable group, then we must defend that. Anyway, John, great talking to you. Thank you so much. You raised some great points, and thank you for calling.
Richard, it was wicked talking to you.
All right, all the best. Hey, let's say hi to our friend Baji, who's checking in from Ohio, and he's a frequent visitor to the live chat on the YouTube channel. Baji, welcome. How are you, my friend?
How are you tonight? Thank you for taking my call. Yeah, along the lines of what he just said, there's an old adage that says, "He who defines the terms wins the argument." Just because I disagree with you, that doesn't mean that I hate you. And when somebody allows that to be the definition of terms, they're going to hold the upper hand in the discussion. And I think it's important when somebody lays that on you to say, hey, look, nobody ever brought up the word hate. You did, you know. But I want to get to my point tonight, my actual comment. Have you ever heard of a guy named Gary Kaw, spell the last name K-A-H?
I have not. Who is he?
He is a guy that used to work for the lieutenant governor in the state of Indiana, and he has really had his finger on the pulse of the New World Order for about 30 years. He has his own website, garykaw.org, and you'll also find him on several videos on YouTube. And the reason why I bring him up, I think if you watched him or listened to him, I think you'd agree. I think he'd make a fascinating guest for your show.
All right. Let me write that down. If I can get the lid off my pen here. Don't you just hate it when you take the lid off the pen and everything sticks to the pen? Okay, Gary.
Absolutely.
Here we go.
I hate it more when the pen doesn't write.
There you go. Gary Kaw, K-A-H. And you said he works.
GaryKaw.org is his website.
GaryKaw.org. All right. I've written that down. I've made a note of it. Thank you very much for the recommendation.
Yeah. And he was involved in a lot of international transactions and commerce, and that's how he first got on to the whole New World Order thing. And he does a very good chronology of how this thing started and how it is progressing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Baji. Great to hear from you.
Good talking to you. Have a good night.
All right. Bye-bye. Anna is in Toronto. Hello, Anna. Welcome.
I'm nervous. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm terrific. How are you doing?
Good, thank you. I really love your show, your talk show. And I would like you to help me, please, because I know you're one of the best hosts of the radio talk show, and I really love your show. And before you are on 6:40 a.m. radio host, I remember.
Well, I used to be over there. I used to be in a number of, yes, I've been all over the dial, Anna. But now 740 Zoomer Radio is my home.
Yes, sir. And I would like to know if you are aware about the host named Spaceman, previous 6:40 a.m. radio host every Saturday.
Of course, yes, Gary Bell, God rest his soul.
What happened to Mr. Spaceman?
Well, Gary Bell passed away. I would say within the last 6 months, tragically. Gary died of cancer. And prior to that, he was let go. He said he was let go from his post. So
I hope that he will rest in peace with our Lord. Oh Lord.
Yes.
And I really love his show, because it really opened my mind to what's happening in our life today.
The Spaceman was a true original. There's no question about that. And the thing I loved about Gary is that while I didn't agree with him on a lot of his positions necessarily, but that doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there. That's the great thing, that we can agree, disagree, and still be friendly. And Gary always treated me, very cordially and with respect. And I didn't have a lot of dealings with him, but we'd meet occasionally at the coffee urn. But once Gary got going on a topic, I mean, you couldn't get out of you couldn't just leave. That would be rude. And so he would have you sort of, I don't want to say cornered, but he'd have your attention for about a half an hour, 45 minutes. And it got to the point where, if I had something, I had a deadline or something, I had to sort of extricate myself from that position. So I had to, whenever I met him, I always had to think of something very innocuous to bring up. Just, hey, what do you think about the Blue Jays or something? Because if he got going on some conspiracy, he was like a pit bull on a pork loin, and he just wouldn't let it go, and you couldn't escape. But the other thing was, it was just fascinating listening to him. So that's those were my dealings with Gary Bell. And yes, God bless him. God rest his soul. Anna, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for taking my call, and God bless you.
My pleasure. All right. Thank you, Anna. 416-360-0740, 416-360-0740, and 1-866-740-4740. I believe we're still trying to reach Captain Kramer, and I kind of hear him in the background on the Hangout on air. So we're going to try and reach him. So we're going to go into a break and come right back, either some more open lines or we will reach out to Captain Kramer. Back with more in a moment. Richard Syrett on The Conspiracy Show. Stay with us.
Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio. To reach Richard, call 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
Did you know there's a high-dose flu vaccine available free of charge for people 65 years of age and over this fall?
Already got mine. Fluzone High Dose. My healthcare provider recommended High Dose because it offers me 24% better protection against the flu than Fluzone's standard dose.
Show off.
65 and over? Ask your healthcare provider about Fluzone High Dose or learn more at fluhd.ca. Vaccination does not provide 100% protection. Side effects and allergic reactions may occur. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist to see if this vaccine is right for you.
So, you're thinking about getting a 2018 Ford Edge?
Oh yeah, and I can get it with features that'll make my life easier, like Apple CarPlay.
Test 1 2 1 2.
You know, during the Ford Smart Choice event,
This is Richard. Test 1 2 1 2.
For up to 60 months, and as a Costco member, I get an extra $1,000. Yep.
Okay, Smarty Pants. Did you know it also includes winter tires, rims, and sensors?
No, I didn't. You're pretty smart.
No, you are. The Ford Smart Choice event. For details, visit your local Ford store or Ford.ca. Costco offer ends October 31st.
Had you ever considered moving?
No, what we really wanted was more living space in the home we have. We didn't want to move.
So you got in touch with Royal Home Improvements.
And the first question we got was, why?
You mean, why a home addition?
They said it was important for them and for us to understand how we planned on using the extra space. That it leads to a better design.
I'm here. Makes sense, right?
But it takes someone with experience to ask the right questions.
And Royal Home Improvements has been building trust since 1969.
Whether you decide to build up or build out, consult first with Royal Home Improvements about how to design extra living space that suits your needs.
So, your advice is?
Don't move for the wrong reasons. Maybe the home you're living in just needs to function better. That was the right move for us.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
It all started with a phone call.
Talk a bit.
For a home addition that works for you and how you live, call Royal Home Improvements, 416-236-4400.
Test 1 2 1 2. I'm here. I can hear Randy. Randy, can you hear me?
Angry, chronic, nonstop pain. It's not pleasant, and
Sorry
it's
about that.
Thank
you for your
An
patience.
effective solution for dealing with it is Dr. Joe's Live Relief. Dr. Joe's Live Relief Active Pain Relief Cream temporarily relieves muscle and joint pain associated with rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, and pain of tendons and ligaments. Live Relief uses Delivra, a unique delivery system. Apply Live Relief directly where it hurts and relieve your pain. Reach for Dr. Joe's Live Relief Active Pain Relief Cream. This product may not be right for you. Always read and follow the label.
With a beach for every budget, Sunwing has the most popular Musset Lawn resorts to choose from for families and couples. And with savings of up to 30% on vacations, along with the best price guaranteed and award-winning service, there has never been a better time to vacation better. Musset Lawn, Colonial City on the beach, Mexico, a world of its own. Book by October 26th with your travel agent or at sunwing.ca.
This is no place for the naive or the faint-hearted. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio.
Well, thank you all for calling in during our impromptu open line segment, but I understand we now have Captain Randy Cramer on the line. Do we have you there, Captain? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am here.
Excellent. Well, you know what?
I can hear you just great, Richard.
Likewise, I'm going to tee this up again and reintroduce you, if that's okay. Captain Randy Cramer is an officer who has been given authority to address the public on behalf of the Command Staff of United States Marine Corps Special Section, which was created by President Eisenhower in 1953 as a covert military intelligence branch with special or specific authority over extraterrestrials, multidimensionals, non-humans, and off-world beings, consortiums and collectives, either sanctioned or unsanctioned, within actionable reach of any and all global territory. He's the product of Soldier Augmentation Project Moonshadow, a training program for children, which he began at age 4 and later spent a 20-year tour of duty off-world, over 17 of which were serving with the Mars Defense Force. He finished his service aboard the EDF SS Nautilus under the command of Captain Roger P. Kirkland as a pilot under Project Radiant Guardian. And I want to mention again that Captain Cramer will also be a featured speaker at Stargate to the Cosmos Expo 2018. That's happening at the Ramada Inn in Midtown Albuquerque, New Mexico, October 25th to 28th. Captain Randy Cramer, welcome aboard the Conspiracy Show. How are you? Finally, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. And it's no surprise. Technical difficulties seem to follow me wherever I go, so I just take it in stride.
You know, that's funny that you mentioned that. There are a number of topics. Whenever I discuss them, there are technical snafus, and we shouldn't be surprised at this point. However,
I've had radio hosts absolutely had their boards hacked in the middle of a conversation and had all the phones lines cut off, and have been unable to be able to reconnect with me. I mean, there's been, quasi, we're not sure if it's gremlins or just technical difficulties, to just absolute, wow, who's messing with us here? So it's a range.
No doubt. Let's talk a little bit about Project Moonshadow. I mentioned it briefly in the introduction. Just let's drill down on that a little bit, because that's going to be very foreign to some listeners, many listeners perhaps. Tell me about that project and how you were introduced to that project.
I was genetically engineered from the ground up as really as a science project, to be honest with you. And my understanding was that in the mid-1960s, the soldier augmentation programs, which most people refer to as super soldier programs, which is fine. I just don't like the term for a list of reasons myself, so I don't use it very often, but it's perfectly acceptable if people want to. It doesn't bother me. But the sort of long story short, the old school way of doing it, you kind of had to break people's brains and their bodies and their psyches and shatter it into a number of pieces to be able to sort of rebuild an alter personality that you then is sort of a, snap your fingers, kill on command type personality. But we, United States Marine Corps Special Section, did a study, and we found that that was a really ineffective way to use resource material, thinking of personnel as resource material, that it was cut their lifespan short, cut their expectation of duty time short, collateral damage was high. So we kind of decided to go with a different method that wasn't about breaking the psyche so much as it was building it from the ground up. And it just seemed like a better use of time and resources. So for that project, the first project that we did using that methodology was Project Moonshadow, and myself and 299 other test subjects were engineered from the ground up and then placed into that program at essentially toddler age, to begin training in all things military, really. I mean, the young ages, you're not given a rifle at age 5. You can't pick one up, but you start with training programs that are designed to get young children to get good at cooperating together, playing games together, working on sort of group accomplishing skills together, the forerunning ground of what you're going to do to teach them later how to act and function as a military unit. And certainly by the time in our young adolescence, we were using small weapons, really weapons that are built for children, which might be a little creepy to some people. It creeps me out a little bit, that there is manufacture of some of these weapons that are essentially child size so that smaller children can handle them. And then as you get older and your body is more full size, then you can start handling the full size weaponry.
We brought you on. This is a short segment because we're going to break here in a few minutes.
Oh yeah, okay. But I could go on and on, so I'll try and keep it quick.
And we will. We've got you for the duration here. But just I wanted to back up a little minute. The idea that, first of all, that you were created from the ground up. What does that mean? Does that mean that that you were created outside of the womb? What does that mean?
It means that my DNA as a sequence was part of my biological mother's DNA was put into that. That part of my biological father's DNA was put into that, and then it was sort of laid out into a sequence that they wanted to use as the base sequence, and then removed the things that they wanted to remove, and then added other codons from an extraterrestrial DNA source to hybridize us to make us a little bit smarter, faster, and stronger. So
did you have a birth mother?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I was all of the sort of pre-engineering, is to get a small fertilized cell that is then put into my biological mother so that I can be born and raised like any other kid in any other normal, working class American family, which I was.
But you were enlisted at the age of 4. You had no say in the matter. I mean, that's unconscionable.
We have some serious issues with how some of this is done, and a lot of how we sort of had to conduct ourselves doing these projects is because it's how other people set it up to function decades ago, and we have a lot of serious issues with that, including genetically engineering children without so much as a how do you do, without so much as their parents really understanding the process, and with a lot of just straight up legal violations on human rights violations and so forth in that process. I can say as an adult who's done my processing on the whole subject, I'm okay with it, but that doesn't mean that it's okay, if I can make that distinction. So I can be okay with how I was made, how I was trained, how I was processed, how I served, and where I am now. And I can, because I've done my own human, psychological and emotional processing on that, I can be okay with it. But by no means do we consider that it's a morally or ethically acceptable way to do things. And one of the main reasons that we would like there to be a disclosure movement is so that we can start to discuss how to do these programs with a moral and ethical guidelines that they should have in them, and not just this, hey, we have to get this done right now, let's cut corners attitude, which has pretty much been the attitude, for the last 70 years.
Well, the other question is why such a program was ever conceived? Why do we need super soldiers? I know you don't that word. I use it as shorthand.
Sure, that's fine
because most people understand it. But augmented soldiers. Why do we need them? Who's the enemy?
Well, in the early days, we were preparing for any eventuality, any conflict that could arise with an extraterrestrial species of any kind. And knowing what little we knew in the early days, the small number of species that we were dealing with, we just knew that we needed to be prepared for just about anything, and that the numbers were showing that your sort of regular Army, even regular Marine Corps, regular Navy, regular Air Corps, Air Force soldiers who had contact experiences with extraterrestrials, and some of them, semi-friendly, some of them vaguely hostile. The participants didn't fare well psychologically. In fact, it tended to break more people than it did anything else, because you really have to be much more than just mentally prepared for that kind of eventuality, because your frontal cortex can process that information. If you think you're ready, like I've said this before, people who say, I want to meet an alien, I want to be in the presence of an extraterrestrial. I say, no, you think you do, but you don't really. If it was someone who looked like, who was very humanoid, who looked, was real, like any of us that could pass for a human being, a terrestrial human being walking down the street, that's a little different. But meeting something that's really not like us, is a shocking experience. And
I'll
even
bet
if your
it is.
frontal
Listen,
cortex,
sorry for the interruption.
go
I got to cut in here. I got to cut in. We've got a break. Sometimes I have difficulty hearing the music under me, but we'll take a time. We'll come back and continue to discuss Project Moon Shadow and other subjects. Captain Randy Cramer, my guest, right here on The Conspiracy Show. Stay with us.
Where there's smoke, there's The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio. Imagine if you conscious mind, the ability to discover the truth and what people around you are really thinking. Now's your chance. Crime and Trauma Scene Cleaners is proud to present, for the first time in Canada, lectures with the legendary David Johnowitz, founder of Reverse Speech.
Now, I've put this off as long as I can, but now I need your help, and that's why we've joined Patreon. You know, I have a small and very dedicated team of volunteers. Maybe you've heard of them. Albert Vinzel, my story producer, and Ryan White, my live stream producer. They come in every week without fail and work for nothing because they believe in the show. And I know you do too. So, I hope you'll consider becoming a donor. A small pledge of $10, $20, or maybe even $50 a month will help us out enormously. I would be eternally grateful. My pledge to you is that we'll continue to follow the truth wherever it leads. Please check out our page at patreon.com/The Conspiracy Show. Again, thank you.
Off all area rugs. We only sell the finest hand-knotted rugs made to withstand everyday living and irregular cleaning. Come visit us at 452 Richmond Street East, where there's always free parking.
Turco-Persian Rug Company, unbeatable since 1906. TurcoPersian.com.
Natural Calm Magnesium helps with sleep, stress, pain, and heart health. But did you know that Natural Calm is now proven more absorbable? In a clinical study comparing Natural Calm to other leading magnesium brands, Natural Calm proved to significantly increase magnesium levels. Get yours today where natural health products are sold, or go to naturalcalm.ca. Natural Calm. Proceeds go to organicsfororphans.org.
Luxury rental lofts are coming soon to the historic Batishio factory, just 15 minutes from Prince Edward County. Upscale loft-inspired interiors, up to 13-foot ceilings, rooftop patio with stunning views of the Trent Severn Waterway and Battawa Ski Hill. Minutes from the amenities of Quinte West, Belleville, and Prince Edward County. Battawa Lofts. Register now at livebattawa.com.
Loose lips sink ships, and sometimes corporations. Got something to say? Call Richard Serrett now at 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
And welcome back. Captain Randy Cramer is with us for the duration, and he will be with us in the second hour. And at the top of the hour, which is coming up shortly, we'll open up the phone lines and we'll take questions and comments for Captain Randy Cramer, whistleblower. Actually, I mean, is whistleblower even the right word? Because you've been sort of given the green light to start talking about this, right? So it's not like you're in breach of some NDO or NDA, right?
That's absolutely correct. It's not. I mean, it's another one of those terms. I don't necessarily correct people if they say it, but no, it's not really accurate when talking about me because my superiors asked me directly and specifically if I wanted to be the public spokesperson for the command staff of United States Marine Corps Special Section. So, yeah, I'm actually sanctioned to do what I do.
And why did they choose this time to sanction you coming forward and telling us about, well, what have been highly classified state secrets? Why now?
Yeah, great question. And the short answer is it's through a process of many data points, we have determined that it's far more dangerous to continue secrecy than secrecy protects. And so at the moment, we think the dangers of continued secrecy are far greater than the rationales for protecting the information or keeping it out of the public sphere.
How does the I love this term that Richard Dolan uses, a breakaway civilization, and these are the people we're told that have benefited from back engineered alien technology or technology directly given to them by extraterrestrials. How does the breakaway civilization feel about you coming forward? And I get the sense that there is this maybe this battle going on backstage between various intelligence groups and military intelligence groups and so forth about disclosure. I mean, is that accurate to say that not everybody is on the same page on this?
That's absolutely correct. There's definitely a conflict of opinion and interest in the different areas. So the military, which is really not even again, this sort of one bubble of, when you're talking about the military organizations which participate, but even if you just lump the military organizations that participate, and then you lump banking and corporate business interests together, and you lump state actors, people who politically represent different countries, and any other interest that may fall into that umbrella. Yeah, everyone's got a slightly different opinion at the moment. And we believe by the numbers, we have a majority of people who just understand that disclosure is necessary to preserve civilization and life on Earth. You can't preserve civilization if you push chaos too far, if you push environmental destruction too far, if you push economic destruction too far. There's just all kinds of things that you can't preserve life and civilization if you go too far. And to be honest, a lot of the big players on this stage are making large quantities of money. And what some people need to understand is those people are finally understanding they don't want to break the machine to fix it because they're making a ton of money off of that machine. And if they, even as a breakaway civilization, if they broke the civilization down here, the surface dweller civilization, if you want to call it that, it would still cost them a tremendous amount of money. And so those civilizations aren't separate. The breakaway civilization and the surface dweller civilization are not entities that can be separated from one another. They're tethered like by an umbilical cord that if you broke it, would damage either one or both of them severely. So I think we've made a pretty good case to get those people to understand that it's inevitable that we have to do this to preserve civilization, life on Earth, and even preservation of the breakaway civilization and the higher ups of the technological covert military space program, as we understand it, needs disclosure to survive. Everyone needs it to survive.
Well, that's somewhat comforting that they, the breakaway civilization, they don't need to slaughter the cow just yet, or they shouldn't slaughter the cow just yet. The cow being the rest of us plebes, I guess.
Yeah, that's often the kinder, gentler term people call people down here the surface dwellers, and because of the people who are sort of contained onto the surface, they can't really go anywhere else. And yeah, we think it's simply not a good idea for everybody or for anybody to do that, to just wipe out the surface dwelling civilization in lieu of some other breakaway civilization. They need each other. They're intertwined with each other. We think the case can be made to bring the surface dweller civilization up into the higher parts of the advanced technology civilization and bring it all together before it just burns itself to the ground.
So we should just disregard the Georgia Stones for now, I guess.
Well, it's a guideline. The Georgia Stones are guidelines, not predictions. So, they're guidelines for different potential futures by people who have an idea of what they think is right or wrong, but not necessarily what is absolutely the right or wrong, especially when you're talking about the numbers of people that we should have living on planet Earth. We don't want to overpopulate the planet. That is a great way to destroy what we have here. But we also want to get everybody in on the picture because we have personnel shortfalls within the space program, and we have personnel shortfalls within the civilian parts of that program. And so we really think that we need everybody involved in this process so that we can get the numbers of people that we need into the positions and jobs that we need them in, that we simply don't have enough resources to just keep drawing from sort of this top cream of the top of smart, educated, accomplished people. You got to start opening the doors a bit at some point to the rest of the civilization, just because we need to fill more chairs than we have bodies for. And we just kind of have to start letting people volunteer and take open recruitment at some point, because we just need more people than what we can continue to do this way, the way that we've been doing it, which is through these covert programs.
Let's talk a little bit about the Mars Defense Force. We've got about 4 minutes to the top of the hour, and then we'll continue after the break. But let's start the conversation now. The Mars Defense Force, you spent a 20-year tour of duty off-world, 17 of which was serving with the Mars Defense Force. So how long has this Mars Defense Force been in place, as far as you know, and what do they have in their arsenal, and who's running it?
It's a military contractor, so it's run by the MCC, which is the Mars Colony Corporation, and the Mars Colony Corporation is under an umbrella of the ICC, or the International Corporate Conglomerate. And so they're the administrators of that military contractor, and they've been active since the mid to late 1970s, which I know seems like a long ways for some people who did not realize that we had colonies on Mars in the mid 1970s, but we did. That was when the first colonies broke ground in 1974, 1975, I believe. And right now, I would say that the staple of the infantry of the Mars Defense Force is a full-body powered combat environment suit, which is hydraulically powered. So you have, extra sort of strength and motor power in your arms and your legs, but it's also an environment suit to protect you from harsh winds, temperatures, etc. And it's geared up to last out in the open sand for hours and hours and hours at a time. And your primary weapon is a magnetically propelled rifle, a railgun, or a Gauss rifle, depending on what terminology you prefer. And so you basically, with infantrymen with a really tough set of full body armor, with hydraulically powered, with a Gauss rifle that shoots a lot of metal rounds really fast without generating much heat or kick. You have a pretty strong force just with that, just with the sort of, that is their basis. But, the actual tools that you get to use in the field come and go, because it's a hardware testing ground. So pretty much our main function, while we were engaging militarily with indigenous species, an indigenous insectoid and an indigenous reptoid species, I would hardly say that it was the truth, even if that's what we were told, that we were protecting the colonies from these species. We were pretty much just out there fighting with the natives in order to develop and perfect military hardware.
Using them like target practice?
Oh, we used each other for target practice. So the insectoids could amass massive swarms of smaller insects, which is quite a formidable force to deal with, believe me. And the indigenous reptoids were strong, fierce, hand-to-hand fighters, and incredibly psionically skilled. So they had the ability to use their minds and their evolved mental powers when they chose to, in ways that could make things very difficult for us as a fighting force to attack them directly, or with things like heavy artillery at a distance.
So you're battling these extraterrestrials on the ground on Mars. Listen, we've got to take a timeout. We'll come back, and we'll open up the phone lines as well. Questions and comments for Captain Randy Cramer. Back with more of The Conspiracy Show. Stay with us.
If you love rock and roll and you love mysteries, you're going to enjoy my podcast. The Rock and Roll Twilight Zone with Richard Serrett. New episodes drop every Wednesday at midnight, 12 a.m. Eastern. It's part of the Jericho Network, as in Chris Jericho, the wrestler from WWE. Check it out, The Rock and Roll Twilight Zone with Richard Serrett. It's now available on Spotify. You can also access it through my website, strangeplanet.ca. The Rock and Roll Twilight Zone with Richard Serrett.
This is Zoomer Radio, CFZM FM and CFZM AM, owned and operated by MZ Media Incorporated.
Loft. That greasy spoon just off the interstate in your cabin in the woods. And a big howdo to everyone listening in on our flagship station, Zoomer Radio. 740 hertz on the amplitude modulation band, megahertz, I should say, and 96.7 on the frequency modulation band here in Toronto. Hi to all of you listening to this transmission on one of our affiliate stations across North America, and howdy to those of you listening to us on the Conspiracy Show app and the Zoomer Radio app, both free downloads. And of course, those of you streaming us live on our YouTube channel, please enjoy, stay a while, but be sure to hit that red sub button. And a hi, of course, to everyone in the live YouTube chat. You're so faithful and loyal. You join us every week. However and wherever you're listening, I bid thee the warmest of welcomes, and I thank you for your fine company. Captain Randy Cramer stays with us for hour two, and we'll take questions and comments as well. We'll open up the phone lines. Just a reminder that my podcast, Conspiracy Unlimited, drops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Conspiracy Unlimited. So if you don't get your fill of the Conspiracy Show on Sunday nights, just keep in mind 3 episodes of Conspiracy Unlimited, where I cover pretty much the same material. And again, those new episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you can listen and subscribe at conspiracyunlimitedpodcast.com. Conspiracyunlimitedpodcast.com. All right, as I say, Captain Randy Cramer stays with us for hour two. He's a whistleblower from the secret space program who has experience with time travel, teleportation, technology solutions, and his contact with aliens, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals. And the captain is also privy to psionic research, which provides a miracle cure that can cure everything, even regenerate limbs. And he's an officer who has been given authority to address the public on behalf of the command staff of the United States Marine Corps' Special Section, which was created by President Eisenhower back in 1953 as a covert military intelligence branch with specific authority over ETs, multidimensionals, non-humans, and off-world beings, consortiums, and collectives. I should also point out that he will be speaking at Stargate to the Cosmos Expo 2018 at the Ramada Inn, Albuquerque, Midtown Albuquerque, October 25th to the 28th. We were talking about the your work on Mars as the part of this Mars Defense Force, and so you're battling the I guess the indigenous species there.
Two of them.
Two of them. Now, are they the same species responsible for a lot of these highly advanced structures that were discovered on Mars?
I would say the ancestors of the reptoids were probably the ones who are mostly responsible for that. However, there is also an indigenous humanoid species that does live there. I never personally experienced them or ran into them. They weren't in the zone that we were as far north as we were, but I have talked to people who have seen and experienced the native humanoid species as well. So that pretty much most of those ancient structures were either built by the indigenous reptoids or indigenous humanoids who lived there, but a long, long time ago. So anyone contemporary who lives there now would have been their long lost ancestors.
And what are the numbers in terms of personnel on the Red Planet right now?
That's hard to say. A few years back, there was a census that was actually happening with the colonies, and they were figuring that I can't tell you what the exact military personnel numbers are. Those are classified, which means I don't even have them in front of me because they're classified. But it's, at least a couple 100,000 military personnel, but I couldn't say for sure. But when we had completed the census, had a number that was right around 10 million for the population of the colonies. But then not long after that, there was a worker revolt because they tend to have a number of the colonies still use a lot of slave labor. And as we understand from human history, you enslave people and, put too much weight on their backs over too long of a period of time. And eventually there's a slave revolt at some point or a worker revolt. So they've been in the middle of that for the last few years. And so we don't have exact numbers right now. A lot of people have died, but we couldn't tell you for sure. But it was about 10 million civilians and anywhere from, 150 to 250, maybe 300,000 military personnel.
Who is being enslaved? Is it the reptoids? Humans?
No, human beings, mostly human beings from here, mostly people, terrestrial humans who were taken away as slave labor for the most part. And in some cases, people who have been there, have been born and raised there for generations since, their slave parents, worker parents were brought there. So in some cases, you have multiple generations of people who have been born and raised in that environment. But the original workers were pretty much taken from here. In some cases, voluntarily. In some cases, it was, hey, you want to be a part of our really cool program? Yeah, that'd be great. But then, when you got there, it's like, oh, what? I don't get paid for this? So not everybody who, was enlisted into any of the colony necessarily got what they thought that they were going to get, because once you're on another planet, people can kind of do whatever they want without much oversight, as long as there isn't any oversight at all, which there kind of hasn't been. So, it's workers who've been taken there and family members who've just been born and raised there for decades now.
And they are being enslaved. And is the Mars Defense?
Some of them. That's right. I want to be clear about that. It's not everybody. It's the colonies. There's 5 or 6 colonies. They all have a slightly different economic infrastructure that allows for either paid workers or, in some cases, slave labor. It really depends on it.
And these rebellions that are happening, are they being put down by the Mars Defense Force? I'm trying to understand who's wearing the white hats and the black hats, or are they all just gradations of gray? Are the soldiers, the infantry, the army on Mars, are they in support of the slave rebellion? Are they quelling the slave rebellion?
I have been told that the military's job to protect the perimeter or to engage at the perimeter is a priority over dealing with any internal squabbles that the colonies themselves are having. In fact, my understanding is that even the MCC and the ICC are allowing some of this uprising to occur and some of the changes to occur in the sense that you have, colonies that have divided now into multiple power structures, those revolting, those who are sort of represent their traditional power structure. And in some cases, the workers who are in charge of factories that have quotas to meet have been able to meet those quotas and therefore gain some favor with the MCC and the ICC overall. So it's not so straightforward as to say, oh, if you're revolting, then, the authorities are going to put you down, because in some cases, the authorities understand that the colonies have been having many problems, and in some cases just cracking the whip over your labor harder isn't necessarily a solution. So if revolting parties can demonstrate that they're more than capable of managing themselves and managing production of the facilities where they work, in some cases the MCC and the ICC are perfectly happy to see those changes happen as long as the production quotas continue to be met with at a minimal.
You mentioned production quotas. What are they producing?
The top business, as long as.
What are they producing?
A lot of it is a lot of it's military hardware. A lot of it's that military hardware that we're testing out. But my understanding is that they also just do a lot of manufacturing that becomes part of this intergalactic trade system. So a lot of the high technology stuff that we know how to replicate and build, we've actually got amazing factories that can produce high quality merchandise that it turns out other species don't necessarily make as efficiently, or in some cases even as well, and are perfectly happy to trade and or pay for the goods that we produce. So a lot of it's military hardware, a lot of it's high level electronics, high technology, the sort of advanced breakaway civilization technology, and ships, in some cases also ships, military hardware, computer technology, medical technology, a lot of high tech stuff.
The slaves, are they? I mean, does this explain a lot of the disappearances here on Earth, so-called alien abductions, people disappearing from national parks all over the world? Is that where they're going? Missing children? Is that where they're going, to Mars?
There's a lot of answers to those questions, meaning there isn't just one answer to say that all those people that are disappearing are being put onto military ships or onto contractor ships and then taken to Mars to be, put into labor service or something. Doesn't mean that that doesn't happen. And it does. It happens quite a bit, I'm sure. But all of those things you mentioned aren't just unilaterally answered by saying people got abducted to go work on, in the slave mines on Mars. People do actually get abducted. Their abductions by extraterrestrials are few and farther in between than they were decades ago because of the net that we have sort of keeping people out who don't have permission to be here. We kind of have done away with most of the treaties, I understand, that allow other species to abduct people off the surface of the Earth. We've kind of done away with that. So what was fairly prevalent in the 60s and 70s is no longer allowed.
All right, Captain Cramer, you stay put. We'll take a time. I'll come back and we'll take a few calls and continue to discuss the Mars Defense Force, Project Moonshadow, psionics, and much more. The Conspiracy Show. My name is Richard Serrett. Don't go away.
Different views make great conversation. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett on Zoomer Radio. To speak with Richard live, call 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
When last we met on Consignment Hero.
Hey, can't get enough of conspiracy and paranormal talk? Well, you don't have to wait an entire week to listen to me on the radio. I have a podcast called Conspiracy Unlimited, and it drops 3 days a week. Brand new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Conspiracy Unlimited. You can check it out and listen and subscribe at conspiracyunlimitedpodcast.com. conspiracyunlimitedpodcast.com. But it's available everywhere you get your favorite podcasts. You can also access it through my website, strangeplanet.ca. Conspiracy Unlimited. Don't miss it.
Place sounded like nails on a chalkboard.
Huh? What? Oh, that is the worst.
He might notice how loud his workplace actually is.
Hey, Lieutenant, please stop.
See how loud is too loud at toneitdown.ca. WSIB is here to help.
Hawaii. It's where paradise goes for inspiration. Just saying the name conjures up images of beautiful beaches, lush landscapes, and that warm aloha spirit. Each Hawaiian island is different. From vibrant Oahu with its amazing culinary scene to an island like Kauai, where you can kick back or experience the most beautiful hiking in the world. Where do you go for inspiration? GoHawaii.com. Visit today or call your travel agent.
Did you know there's a high-dose flu vaccine available free of charge for people 65 years of age and over this fall?
Already got mine. Fluzone High Dose. My healthcare provider recommended High Dose because it offers me 24% better protection against the flu than Fluzone Standard Dose.
Show off.
65 and over, ask your healthcare provider about Fluzone High Dose or learn more at fluhd.ca. Vaccination does not provide 100% protection. Side effects and allergic reactions may occur. Talk to your doctor or pharmacist to see if this vaccine is right for you.
Exploring theories, uncovering facts, and offering a different view of the universe. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett on Zoomer Radio. To speak with Richard live, call 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
Captain Randy Cramer stays with us for the full 2 hours, and we've opened up the phone lines. And before we go to Gerald in Ohio, I wanted to ask you, Captain Cramer, about Gary McKinnon, the Scottish systems analyst who hacked the Pentagon computers and sort of blew the whistle on deep space platforms and a secret space program and so forth. How much of what he revealed was accurate, and how much of what he revealed was, I guess, was he being used as a psyop? Is that what is what I'm asking?
The question has certainly come up whether or not somebody wanted him to find that information and whether they were packaging it in such a way as, for someone who would hack in and be able to find that information. But there's also some pretty interesting evidence from people who know Mr. McKinnon and his process that he was pretty much, randomly hacking these government systems at a time when very few people were able to do so, had the intelligence to know what numbers to call. Because, a lot of these, systems were hackable from outside phone lines if you happen to have the phone number that you could get you into the system, that could get you on into the system through an outward phone line. I would say that none of those systems, are accessible through just somebody calling up an outside phone number nowadays. They're much tighter than that. But at the time, that was possible. So there's certainly some question there, but I would say that the majority of the information that he had appears to be accurate, or appears to have been accurate at that time.
Continuing along in the sort of the disinfo stream, I wanted to get your thoughts on Tom DeLonge and Robert Bigelow and Academy to the Stars and their efforts to bring about disclosure. Are they part of this disinfo campaign? Are they on the same team? What's happening there?
I couldn't tell you exactly, because I don't know, where every source of money, funding, information, intelligence, or where every string that could be pulled is being pulled in those lines of communication. communication. But I would say that most parties working as that sort of bridge between civilian and covert military intelligence, most of those people, I would say, have in some shape or form the interest of some kind of disclosure. Exactly what kind of disclosure, how, what, where, and when is all very questionable and different based on preferences of agendas. But I'd say that the majority of those people want to see some kind of disclosure because, again, they understand the basis of the model that it has to happen. If we don't do it sometime soon, we're going to be doing detrimental harm to society, civilization, and the planet at large, and society at large. And most of those people simply understand that it has to happen. I'm not saying that they can't get monkey wrenched either from the inside by somebody along the way. And Tom DeLonge, great guy as far as I understand, but they seem to be having some serious financial troubles at the moment that may have been orchestrated, may have been sort of, hey, we're going to give you some funding and then yank, now we're going to take it all away, and kind of leaving everybody in the lurch and potentially evaporating the entire organization over money shortfalls because somebody decided to stop their funding.
My concern is people are starting to get disclosure fatigue. You know what I mean? We
Sure.
we get teased. And, yeah, what are your thoughts? I mean, how do we counteract that?
Unfortunately, if you want to talk about like we as, a civilian movement of the populace, a we the people, there's not much that we can do at the moment about it. It's going to happen one way or another. And how that happens is really not up to me, and it's not up to you, and it's not up to pretty much the people listening in the audience here. Unfortunately, we wish it was a more of a democratic choice where people really got a say in that. We truly do. We think that that would be the more ethically and moral correct thing to do. But the way it stands right now, there's a number of different ways in which some very powerful groups of people have been talking about how they want to roll through this and how they want to roll it out, and whether they want to do it calm and peaceably, or whether they want to have a hoax invasion and roll it out that way with a bad guy alien and a good guy alien, and then have that sort of worked out in a melodrama scenario in which we're all led by the nose through that process. And exactly how that works out and exactly how that's going to happen is not up for me to say, or unfortunately for you or most of the general public to say. It's going to happen one way or the other. I would say it's our best duty to be prepared for just what's going to happen when it happens. So I totally get that. I mean, I have the same fatigue, believe me. Every time someone tells me, oh, something's going to happen, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm waiting for it. And then, we pass a date and nothing happens. Like, all right, well, that was just another either a flash of light that's a ruse, or just something that didn't quite work out. Because a number of times throughout the last couple of decades, we've had situations where people really were about ready to try and make something happen, and then something happened that caused a bunch of people to change their mind, or enough key players to change their mind that they put the stop on it and said, no, let's actually change our mind and not do that right now. Let's process this for another couple of years. Let's go down this road for another couple of years and then see where we are. So it's an ever-changing process. I'm as frustrated as anybody by that, believe me, because I know enough to know that it's an inevitability. And that inevitability means that sometime between now and the next decade, there will have to be some form of disclosure that we understand that there's extraterrestrial life and that we have some technology exchange from advanced species to our own. Whether that happens this week or 10 years from now, or wherever it might happen in between, is just questionable to a lot of factors. There's just a lot of factors that play in on when exactly and how exactly that's going to roll out. But it's an inevitability. There's just no way that we can continue to say there's no such thing as extraterrestrials, technologically advanced extraterrestrials visiting planet Earth, and there's no way that the military intelligence complex doesn't have information about it, and there's no way that we haven't made some progress with that. It's all going to depend on exactly how they want to tell that narrative, which could be any variation of 100% of the truth to 5% of the truth and 95% falsehoods compared to what is actually going on. But the inevitability of it happening within the next decade is going to happen. That much we can say for sure.
Don't you think that the good news of the technological advancements and psionics and cures for everything and regenerating limbs and so forth is going to be tempered significantly by the news that all of the misery that's been perpetrated on planet Earth for centuries and centuries and centuries by the elites is being perpetrated again in Mars, and we're going to continue to spread that misery throughout the galaxy? Is that the future?
Well, let's hope not. And again, that's probably why the narrative is going to be controlled at first, and it's not going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It's going to be some version of a little bit of truth with a bunch of denials, and we don't know anything about that. So I would expect that it's not going to be a clean break. It's not even going to be, a clean step over a line where there's this sort of before disclosure, after disclosure kind of a situation where it's all the information at once. I think it's going to be bits and pieces of information. But once the information starts to flow, it's going to be difficult to completely and totally control and stamp out the truth. So we think that once you just get your foot in the door, as it were, and we can start talking about, that there is advanced extraterrestrial intelligence with technology that is visiting us, and we can get past that narrative, and we can get past that conversation, then it allows for a lot of other conversations to occur. So we think that once you get that first couple of steps going, the rest of it will come fairly quickly, and not nearly as quickly as most people are going to want or be happy about, but in terms of how long it's been dragging out for the past 7 decades, it'll seem fairly quickly.
Gerald is in Maxwell. Gerald, welcome to the Conspiracy Show. Is that Maxwell, Ontario?
Yes, it is.
Hey, Gerald, welcome.
How are you, Richard?
Terrific, thank you. You have a question for Captain Kramer?
Yes, I do.
All right, we're all ears.
I have watched Total Recall. Now, just about everything you've said tonight tracks perfectly with that movie. Now, is Hollywood anywhere close to what you've experienced?
Storyline sometimes gets pretty close to the truth. Production value is where we're going to sometimes part ways on what's truth or fiction. And I will
more money to spend than the American government. Yes, I can say I can understand that.
All right, let's let Randy respond. So just finish your thought on that, Randy.
Yeah, well, one of the interesting things about Total Recall is that, of course, you're referring to the first version of that movie that was done back in, I want to say, the early 90s, which is the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And then there is a newer version of that film with some different actors that has a completely different backdrop to the scenario. It doesn't take place on Mars. It takes place solely on planet Earth. And it has way more to do with this separation of, again, this sort of advanced part of the civilization, this very poor, technologically decrepit part of the civilization. But the original story, which that's based on, is actually the second movie, not the first one. So the first one, where they decided to put all this stuff about Mars into it, that's plausible deniability for a lot of people, where they knew that at some point they were going to start hearing people who had been there who were going to start having memory recall, and we're going to start having total recall at some point. That's even a term that we use to describe getting all of your memories back. That was going to happen at some point, and so they wanted this plausible deniability so that they could say, at first, with someone like myself, spinning the story the way that I do, someone could say, "Oh, dude, you've just seen Total Recall too many times," because that's plausible deniability, even though the original story had nothing to do about that. Sorry, go ahead.
Could I ask another question now?
Yeah, go ahead, Gerald.
Sure.
Yes.
What
Gerald?
you're saying is This technology is possible on Earth now. They can replace our memories with something completely different than what we remember. This is what you're saying?
Yes and no. I mean, it's a complicated technological process. It's not so simple as to just pick somebody up off the sidewalk and sit them in a chair, with a hair dryer kind of device on top of it and completely change their memories. It's not that simple. It's a lot more convoluted if you want to really, really, really try and change what someone thinks actually happened, what their actual memories are, what screen memories are. Or holographic memories, or even artificial neurons or things like that they can use. There can be a really involved process if you're really trying to cover up some memories or trying to hide some actual memories. It's certainly not cost effective to do that with every single person in the civilian population. It only really serves a purpose to use that with select personnel who have way more information in their head than they consider to be secure or safe to have those people walking around with that information readily available. So the false memories and screen memories are implanted in people who leave the service, who have tons of classified information in their mind that they don't want them, leaking out or talking about. But it's not something that they can just go around and, take an entire population in a metropolitan city and wipe or change everybody's memories or make them all think, or believe that a certain thing occurred a certain way. Because that's just not technologically feasible. So it's something you can do to individuals specifically, specific reasons, but it's not the kind of technology you can wave, a technological wand of any kind and do to a mass number of people across a metropolitan area or in a country or across a nation or a country.
Gerald, thank you for that. Frank is in Toronto. Frank, good morning. Welcome to the Conspiracy Show. Are you there, Frank? I think we lost
hi,
Frank.
can you hear me?
Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. Good evening, gentlemen. Good morning, I should say. Yeah. Well, I got a conflicting information on Mars. First, I'd like to start off by saying I do believe, there was a possible civilization there, because I've seen those NASA photos of the pyramid and the face, right?
Right.
But I've also heard that xenon, the gas xenon, was found on Mars, which can only be produced through a thermonuclear explosion.
Excellent point. Yeah.
Was completely obliterated, and now you're telling us, if it's true, I mean, I don't know, but you're saying, that there's species living there. Well, there's no ecosystem. Well, what are they breathing? Eating. Nothing grows, right? There's no atmosphere there. There's no.
Well, wait till you hear this. Captain, do you want to fill them in on the forests growing on Mars?
And how are you getting there, by the way? That's another.
Okay, let's one thing at a time. What about, NASA's revealed that there is water on Mars, but you've gone one step further. You're saying that photographs clearly show there are trees growing on Mars, which has me up a tree because, like Frank, I thought there was no atmosphere on Mars. Are you with us, Randy? Did we lose Randy? I think we did. All right, we'll get Randy back. Let's go into a break. We'll come back, and I think we got Randy back. But are we going to a break, Ian? Yes, sir. I think we are. Yes, the music is playing. We'll come back in a moment and pick this up on the other side with Captain Randy Cramer, right here on the Conspiracy Show. Stay with us.
Don't be afraid of the dark. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio. To talk to Richard, call 416-360-0740. Or toll free 1-866-740-4740.
Picking up
Hi, it's
sushi
your
from
old
a
buddy
gas
Richard
station?
Serrett, host and
What a
creator of The
smart
Conspiracy
choice.
Show.
But you
I
know
have
what?
news. We're now on Patreon. Now, I've put this off as long as I can, but now I need your help, and that's why we've joined Patreon. I have a small and very dedicated team of volunteers. Maybe you've heard of them. Albert Vinzel, my story producer, and Ryan White, my live stream producer. They come in every week without fail and work for nothing because they believe in the show. And I know you do too. So I hope you'll consider becoming a donor. A small pledge of $10, $20, or maybe even $50 a month will help us out enormously. I would be eternally grateful. My pledge to you is that we'll continue to follow the truth wherever it leads. Please check out our page at patreon.com/The Conspiracy Show. Again, thank you.
Cruise has it all. That's because it's all inclusive.
Norm Edwards is going back to Athens.
Join me in a voyage to antiquity as our small ship treats us to every comfort at sea. Embarking from Malaga, Spain, the city of Picasso, we're charting a course for 3 Sicilian ports, including Palermo and ancient Catania, where a volcanic Mount Etna lives and breathes.
After a stop in Malta, you'll reach Greece on day 10.
And I have my sights set on beautiful Santorini. With 8 tours, onboard gratuities, and wine and beer with dinner priced in, plus included airfare and hotel in Athens, this 15-day voyage is truly all-inclusive, and we don't want to exclude anyone.
Check out travelwithnorm.ca and book today.
Or call 1-866-919-2111. Cabins are limited. Discover Cruise Holidays of Clarkson's Southern Mediterranean cruise leaving next April.
The truth will set you free, but first, it will really tick you off. You're listening to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Sarrett from Zoomer Radio.
Welcome back. Captain Randy Cramer is with us. Randy, just before the break, Frank was on from Toronto asking, I believe it was Frank, asking about, well, he's kind of perplexed because on the one hand, we hear there's no atmosphere on Mars, and yet there are indigenous species of extraterrestrials and a population, perhaps 10 million humans living on the surface. And then on your website, and we can direct people to the website, which is earthcitizenconsulting.org, you have pictures, NASA pictures of what appear to be trees growing on Mars. So what's going on exactly?
Yeah, no, those are Jet Propulsion Lab satellite, infrared satellite photos of fairly recent satellite passes imagery, which are true and accurate. I will even go back as far as the Viking craft that we actually have one of the scientists who put one of the experiments on the Viking craft that says his experiment absolutely showed the presence of microorganisms, and which demonstrates that there's oxygen, carbon dioxide on the planet. There's livable atmosphere there. Not too long ago, NASA actually made this very back page admission that they had used spectrometry to see that there was in fact oxygen, carbon dioxide, and water in the atmosphere. And the director of NASA at that time is quoted in that press release as saying, "We may have to accept that there is livable atmosphere on Mars right now." That is a quote from the director of NASA. So they have changed the narrative, even when they knew from the Viking lander that there was scientific testing showing that there was atmosphere. They decided to go with the test that, because of the variance in ppms that were necessary to prove one way or the other, you had one test that was like, nope, this test says no. Well, this test says yes, because of the ppm requirements for the number of gas particles that had to be found before the test was considered a positive. So they went with the negative test because they didn't necessarily want to tell people the truth. But one of the scientists from the Viking project has gone out publicly and tried to talk for years about the test that he ran and how it showed that there were gaseous expulsions from microorganisms, showing that there was some form of atmosphere there. And then over time, we've been told again, there's no, there's nothing there. But yeah, then they say, well, yeah, maybe there's running water. Okay, there's running water. Okay, maybe there's livable atmosphere. We're finding water and gases in the atmosphere. And oh, maybe there's a lake underground somewhere. So they've continued to change that narrative over time, and they will continue to do so. But there's absolutely livable atmosphere there. plant, depending on where you are in the towards the equator or farther north or south. You know, there's small trees to big trees, small organic life to large organic life. It's a fairly thriving planet, to be honest with you. It's a big desert for the most part, but it's thriving actually.
And his other question was, I mean, we're talking about 10 million inhabitants, some of whom were born on the red planet, others were not. I'm not sure what the percentages are, but how are they getting there? I mean, these would have to be massive ships. Where are they taking off from? Tierra del Fuego? Where?
The ship, we took a smaller ship, a TR-3B, which is a black triangle shaped vehicle, and can, depending on the size of the ship, can hold 30 to 50 people. But we took a TR-3B from Earth to the moon, to Luna Operations Command, which is on the backside of the moon. Luna Operations Command, we boarded a transport ship. I'm going to guess, based on just the number of seats that were on the floor that I was on, that could have been 4,000 or 5,000 people in the entire thing. And then that ship took a jump gate from lunar orbit to Mars orbit in a very short period of time. My friend and colleague, Andy Bishago, was part of the jump room programs, though, when he was younger. So they also do have what he calls Tesla teleportation, which is essentially a localized wormhole that's generated in front of you, and like a Stargate from the TV show, but except they're not round and it doesn't look like a bunch of water comes out of it. That's all, window dressing. But it's essentially the same thing. It's a wormhole generator, and it enables you to walk through a portal and appear on the other side. And so depending on what level of security clearance you're dealing with will depend on whether you have access to jump gate technology, transport technology, or you have to get there by ship that goes through a wormhole, goes through a jump gate in itself. So there's a number of different ways that you can get there. And it's fairly efficient and fairly quick. My understanding is it's a number of seconds to get from Earth to Mars via jump gate.
So there are essentially, for lack of a better word, you probably won't like this term as well, but there are stargates here on Earth that people can just walk through and end up on the other side on Mars.
Yeah, absolutely. That's correct.
Okay. All right, let's go to Dan in Hamilton. Dan, welcome to the Conspiracy Show. You're on with Captain Randy Cramer. Go ahead.
Yeah, hello.
Hi there.
My thoughts are like, okay, so if all this is going on and the governments are thing, and there's all these different planes or dimensions and wormholes that the U.S. government has sent a plane after to find out where the ship went. Now, what's to say that some of these ships aren't, with there's abductions going on in that when they abduct people, are they doing a brain thing or something, reading their thoughts and seeing it's worth abducting them? And do they have some of their people down here, like with bigger ears and stuff like that not all humans are able to see? Like I can see certain things.
All right, let me see if we can sort of clarify some of those questions. So the abduction phenomenon, you're saying earlier, Randy, that there isn't as much of that going on because we've cast kind of a protective net over the Earth, and we've sort of severed some of those agreements, those treaties with ETs that allowed for that sort of thing to go on. But is there still some abductions going on? Are there some ETs that have maybe penetrated that defense system and are still abducting humans?
I would say that's a fairly rare occurrence where it's extraterrestrials these days, but there are military programs which continue to abduct people while pretending to be extraterrestrials. That's a whole nother program of trying to sort of, let's just call it, muddy the waters of people who are having quote unquote abduction experiences. And by having these completely theatrical kind of experiences where it's military personnel who are either disguised as using holographic projectors. In some cases, we may actually have some actual extraterrestrials who are helping us with the process to sort of play the part of the alien being in that scenario. So that does happen from time to time. But most of the abductions are probably just military in purpose, And depending on which department, which rogue agency is deciding what personnel they need or for what, can depend on what that's for. So it's one of the reasons why we think that we need to have a lot of oversight in this, because as long as there
No
isn't
kidding.
oversight, then you have programs that can just say, we need some test subjects, let's go find some, or we need some, we need some biochemists, let's go find some. And then
got to cut in here, Randy. We're going to go to another break. We'll come back and pick up on that. One final segment remains with Captain Randy Cramer right here on The Conspiracy Show.
Shaking the world and seeing what falls. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio.
Hey, if you love rock and roll and you love mysteries, you're going to enjoy my podcast, The Rock and Roll Twilight Zone with Richard Syrett. New episodes drop every Wednesday at midnight, 12 a.m. Eastern. It's part of the Jericho Network, as in Chris Jericho, the wrestler from WWE. Check it out, The Rock and Roll Twilight Zone with Richard Syrett. It's now available on Spotify. You can also access it through my website, strangeplanet.ca. The Rock and Roll Twilight Zone with Richard Syrett.
From the Sierra Mountains, that's been clinically proven to help support a healthy inflammatory response, gently detoxify, and improve physical function. Here's what Gordon London had to say about Sierra Sil. Sierra Sil is a life changer for me. It's allowed me to get through the day without discomfort in my back, knees, and ankles. Thank you, Sierra Sil, for the relief. And Sharon in Oakville, I was having aches in my hip and leg to the point where I decided to give Sierra Sil a try. About the 3-month mark, I realized the aches and discomfort were virtually gone. I have no hesitation in recommending Sierra Sil. Join the list of those living pain-free. Sierra Sil, it's the natural choice for proven joint pain relief. Look for it at your favorite natural food store or all Rexall and Rexall Pharma Plus locations.
For over a century, Turco-Persian Rug Company has been providing excellent service at great prices. I'm Jessica Kasparian, reminding you of yet another reason to visit Turco-Persian, our showroom's annual fall sale. Receive 20% off all area rugs. We only sell the finest hand-knotted rugs made to withstand everyday living and irregular cleaning. Come visit us at 452 Richmond Street East, where there's always free parking.
Turco-Persian Rug Company, unbeatable since 1906. TurcoPersian.com.
When in doubt, blame the government. You're listening to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio.
All right, well, welcome back. A few moments remain with Captain Randy Cramer. Let's talk just a little bit. I want to help promote the conference that's coming up in Albuquerque, October 25th to the 28th. What will be discussed during your presentation? Randy, are you there? Oh dear, have we lost Randy yet again? Oh, I hear him in the background. Randy? Okay.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. There you are. All right.
Hey,
Yes.
here I am. Okay.
The Albuquerque, the conference in Albuquerque. Talk to me a little bit about that.
No worries. I've been teaching a class on the laws of psionics, psionic self-defense and military psionic protocols. And so we'll be talking a little bit about that and probably sharing a little bit about the general aspects of my story, since some people will not have necessarily heard that part. Have a book that will be coming out very, 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 very shortly. So I will certainly spend a little bit of time talking about that. And as what I usually do with folks too is I like to give people an opportunity to ask me questions live and in person, since people always have questions. So whatever time I don't fill up talking about stuff that is on the docket for me to talk about, we'll just spend the rest of the time talking to people about whatever they want to chat about.
All right. Again, that's Stargate to the Cosmos Expo, and that's at the Ramada Albuquerque, Midtown Albuquerque, New Mexico, October 25 to 28. You mentioned Andrew Bashego. I've met Andrew several times and interviewed him on the radio, on my TV show, etc. Everything he's told us about Operation or Pegasus, Project Pegasus, time travel, teleportation, all true as far as you're concerned?
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Every word of it, as far as I understand.
So we haven't talked about time travel, and we only have a few minutes, and certainly we'll have you back on to delve further into this. Were you at all involved in Pegasus?
Not Project Pegasus per se, but other programs that have taken the knowledge from Project Pegasus and the ability to use time travel, certainly.
Okay, I'm not sure if we lost you again. Are you there still, Randy? Boy, we are having a heck of a time with the phones tonight. Randy?
Can you hear me now?
I can't.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Okay, so you sort of tailed off there at the end. So we were talking about Project Pegasus. You said it's true. You weren't involved in Pegasus directly, and then I lost you.
Oh, that's okay. But other programs do get to use time travel technology. So when we were in training programs when I was a kid, it was not uncommon to go away for days at a time and then get returned, quote unquote, 15 minutes after you left, so that it doesn't appear to anybody in the household that you've been anywhere. My tour of duty, which was a 20-year tour of duty, essentially is the same kind of thing where, I was taken away at 2:30 a.m. to go off for my 20-year tour, and then was brought back at 2:45 a.m., 15 minutes after I left. So it appears as if it never happened to everybody around you. And for me personally, it was like waking up from a dream that had been going on for months and months and months and months. I mean, really, I woke up in my bed going, whoa, I just had the longest dream that went on for months and months and months and months. And then as it started to fade out of my head, and I got up and looked in the mirror, and I was 20 years younger, or the same age that I was when I went to bed the night before, quote unquote. Again, it all gets very weird at that point. Your brain just suppresses, goes with the memory suppression at that point, and you just accept that, oh, I just had a really long dream. I really just woke up. Here I am again. And you just kind of start that part of your life over again, but not thinking that you're in military service, but having visceral, emotional, visual kinds of memory connectors and images still left really, really viscerally strong within your cerebral cortex that you have to deal with, but not the linear context for it at all. So it becomes a chaotic kind of experience to put it all back together after that. But yeah, trace amounts of time travel can get used all over the place.
What is your status now? Are you still back and forth to the Red Planet? Are you still involved with the Mars Defense Force?
My job is here. No. I'm not a contractor with the MDF anymore. I am an officer with the United States Marine Corps Special Section. I serve as the de facto spokesperson, PR officer for the command staff of United States Marine Corps Special Section, and I function as an independent field commander, which gives me some authority and security clearance to do certain things, which at this point is the public relations work, some research and development into advanced technology, and some criminal investigation.
Now, if the Marine Corps Special Section, they've dispatched you to start the disclosure process, I mean, why don't they get behind this in a little more serious way? I mean, you're one person, and we're not likely to see you on Nightline with Ted Koppel or Sean
Not
Hannity
yet.
on Fox News and so forth. But,
Yeah,
but
not
when
yet.
are they? Not yet. But I mean, and if we were to go and we were to contact the the Marine Corps Special Section, I mean, I'm guessing what they would deny. They would deny.
You can. I mean, you're more than welcome to call up the CMC's office. I tell anyone who thinks that I'm committing fraud and impersonating an officer can always call the CMC's office and report me if they want to. But if you wanted to call them and ask them questions, one of a couple of things would happen. And I've known people who've made this phone call, so I can tell you this from their experience. You'll get put on hold. You might get transferred to a few different people. You might get asked a bunch of invasive questions that might make you think that you're being interrogated, and you might want to hang up the phone, which has happened to someone I know who made that call. But otherwise, special section is an unacknowledged special access program. So you can start asking all the questions you want about United States Marine Corps special section, and you're not going to get any kind of an official admission by anyone that you're going to get on the phone there. But again, if I were a liar and I were committing fraud, I were impersonating an officer, I were not telling the truth, they'd be very interested in that. They'd be very interested in talking to me about that. They'd be very interested in telling me, hey, you're not telling the truth. You're making stuff up. You need to stop that right now. Impersonating an officer is a felony, and not just a little kind of slap on the wrist felony, but a pound in rocks in Leavenworth kind of a felony.
Right. Right.
So I make that very clear to anybody who doesn't understand the legal jeopardy that I would be in if I were committing fraud. And so they're not interested in talking to me because if they were, they would. If they were interested in telling me to stop and cease and desist, they would. But they also, don't go around deliberately admitting or denying. So they kind of do that whole, from one conversation, I know someone that got on the phone and got the run around with, kept getting on the different phone with a different officer or someone else. So they'd have to try and explain what they wanted to know. And they'd say, look into that and get back to you. And they kind of play that neither confirm nor deny business. So they don't necessarily say, oh yeah, he's one of ours, but they don't necessarily go, what, that crazy guy? We don't know anything about that. So they kind of just play the, what, we don't know anything about that special section. Oh, there's nothing, there's no branch called special section. I mean, they'll just say all that kind of stuff that they have to say because that's the legal protocol for dealing with unacknowledged special access programs. But yeah, you're welcome to give them a call if you want to, but you're not going to get much there. But
right. No, I anticipated that.
Yeah.
One of the callers was going to ask this according to the notes on my screen, but I guess didn't get around to it. And that is, have you brought anything back from Mars?
I would have loved to have been able to bring something back, but no. No, it wasn't allowed to bring anything back. No camera, no photographs, no cassette tapes with audio recordings. No, nothing. It's a clean process, meaning, I have to turn in all my uniforms, all my equipment when I leave, and I have to come back through a screening process. That's a medical screening process. So even if I had managed to find some, a rock or an artifact or something that I could show as proof and managed it, to cram it up my butt, they would have found it and pulled it out, and I still wouldn't have been able to bring it back. So it's a clean process. It's a clean process.
Right. It really does sound like we are living on a prison planet here, and only allowed to survive at the good grace of these elite overlords, this breakaway civilization. And as you say, in some of the outposts on Mars, they are enslaving humans. I mean, why should we trust them with anything that I mean, and why should you trust them? Maybe you're being used. How do we know? You haven't had memories implanted and it's some sort of a psychological screen or something. You know what I'm saying? These are nefarious people.
That's a perfectly fair question. And unfortunately, the complicated answer is complicated, which is there is no them in the sense that there's one group of people, one organization, one military organization, one financial organization, one covert breakaway civilization organization that's in charge of everything, that gets to make the call on everything, that dictates and decides how everything is rolling out. There are a lot of actors in the scene, and there's a lot of people in military intelligence personnel. There are state actors, elected leaders of executive branches, legislative branches, military liaisons, technological personnel, industrial technology personnel, corporate personnel. You have a lot of people who really come together to make up this large lump of covert military space program activities. And there just isn't one them. So, and it's been over a process of 70 years that a lot of this has occurred. So you have different people running programs than you did 50 years ago. You have different people in charge of programs than you had 30 years ago. So it's just not the same group of people doing the same thing decade after decade after decade after decade. It's an evolving process. And it's it's people who are involving that process as well. So again, I would go back to the part that we understand that there's an inevitability and a necessity for this. And most of the people that we've communicated with under the umbrella of the various covert military space program activities agree with that. Some of them still don't. Some of them still think that it's not the best thing to do at this time. They want to drag their feet about it. But most everyone agrees it just has to happen sometime soon. So, but I can understand. I can understand people being skeptical and have a hard time trusting, but it's going to happen one way or another anyway. So enjoy the show as it occurs. Really.
Captain Cramer, great meeting you. We have to have you on again. We barely scratched the surface. Thank you so much. And again,
thanks for having me. Anytime.
My pleasure. And we'll direct people to the website, earthcitizenconsulting.org. And, of course, the Stargate Cosmic Expo, October 25th to the 28th in Albuquerque. All right. Thanks to Ian, Ryan, and back next week with a brand new show. Don't be afraid. There's nothing concealed that won't be revealed and nothing hidden that won't be made known. What you hear in the dark, speak in the light, what I say in a whisper. Proclaim from the housetops. Move over, Aphrodite. I'm coming home, or at least upstairs. So long for now. Good night.